A woman I knew destroyed a 15-year friendship in 4 minutes. Not with a lie, not with a betrayal, with 4 words. She answered a question she should have left alone. And what made it devastating is that it felt like the right thing to do. It felt honest. It felt warm. It felt like exactly what a good person would say. And that is the trap. That is what I am going to show you today. There are questions floating through your daily life right now that look like normal conversation. They come from coworkers, from friends, from partners, from people who smile when they ask. They do not feel dangerous. They feel like connection. They feel like someone who cares about you is simply trying to understand you better. And because of that feeling, you answer. You open up. You give them exactly what they were looking for. And then, sometimes days later, sometimes years later, you realize what actually happened. You realize that the answer you gave was used against you, that the warmth you felt was engineered, that the question was never really a question. It was a mechanism, a very old, very well-designed mechanism for getting people to hand over something they never intended to give. What I am going to walk you through today are 5 of those mechanisms. 5 questions that have derailed careers, collapsed relationships, and stripped people of power they spent years building. These are not rare questions. You have heard all of them before. You will hear them again before this week is over. And after today, you will never hear them the same way again. Stay until the end, because the 5th one is the question that makes the other 4 possible. If you only protect yourself from 4 of these and leave the 5th one open, you will keep walking into every single trap. The 5th question is the master key, and by the time we get there, you will understand exactly why. But first, you need to understand something about yourself that most people never figure out. From the time you were very young, you were trained to answer questions. A teacher raised her hand and pointed at you, and you answered. A parent looked across the dinner table and asked where you had been, and you answered. An authority figure wanted information, and you provided it without thinking. Not because you were weak, because you were taught that answering questions is what cooperative, honest, trustworthy people do. Refusing to answer meant you had something to hide. Hesitating meant you were guilty of something. Answering quickly and fully meant you were safe. That training did something to you. It collapsed the space between hearing a question and responding to it. It made your answer almost automatic. And in most of life, that is fine. Most questions are harmless. Most people are not trying to take anything from you. But some are. And when they are, that automatic response is the door they walk right through. What I want to give you today is that space back. The pause between the question and your answer. Because in that pause, everything changes. In that pause, you see what the question is really doing. You see what it is designed to take from you. And you make a choice instead of giving a reflex. Let me show you the first one. It happens after. That is the first thing you need to notice. Not before, not during, after. The decision has already been made. The action has already been taken. The plan has already been set in motion. And then, once none of it can be undone, they turn to you and they say it. You don't mind, right? Or it comes as, that's okay with you, isn't it? Or, you're fine with that? Or, I just assumed you were good with this, you are, right? Feel that for a second. Feel what is actually happening there. Because most people miss it completely in the moment. The question is not asking for your input. Your input would have been relevant before the action. Your input would have mattered before the decision. They did not come to you then. They come to you now, after, when the only thing your opinion can actually affect is whether you look easygoing or whether you look like the difficult person who is making a problem out of nothing. That is the trap. The question has been engineered so that saying yes costs you nothing in the short term, but erodes something important over time. And saying no sounds like you are the problem. You are the unreasonable one. You are the one creating tension over something already done. So you say it is fine. You say you do not mind. And the moment you do, you have done 3 things at once. You have given retroactive approval to something you were never asked about. You have established that this pattern is acceptable. And you have taught the person in front of you exactly how to treat you going forward. Researchers who study social compliance have documented this pattern for decades. When people agree to something after the fact, they are far less likely to object the next time a similar action is taken. Because now they have already agreed. They are consistent with their previous decision. And the next request is always slightly larger than the last one, because the limit has already been tested and confirmed. Think about your own life right now. Think about someone who has consistently done this to you. They committed your time without asking and then confirmed it with you after. They shared something about you and then asked if that was okay. They made a group decision that affected you directly and then presented it to you as a polite formality already in motion. And each time, because pushing back felt socially costly, you went along with it. That is not you being easygoing. That is a boundary being moved so slowly that you never quite notice how far from your starting point you are. Here is what you do instead. When someone presents you with something already done and then asks if you mind, you do not say yes and you do not create a scene. You simply refuse to confirm what you did not choose. You say, "I would have wanted to be part of that decision before it was made." You say, "Next time, I'd rather be in the conversation earlier." You are not angry. You are not accusatory. You are simply honest about your position without handing over the approval they are looking for. Watch what happens. Some people will genuinely hear it and adjust. Others will get uncomfortable because they did not expect you to step outside the frame the question was designed to keep you inside. And the ones who get the most uncomfortable are usually the ones who needed your automatic agreement the most. The question is not just rude, it is a strategy. Now you know how to respond to it. The second one is smoother, more sophisticated. It comes dressed in the language of honesty and openness, which is exactly what makes it so effective. Because who could object to honesty? Who wants to be the person who says, "Please lie to me instead"? Someone pauses. They look at you with an expression that suggests they are about to say something real, something vulnerable, something brave, and they say, "Can I be honest with you?" And immediately something happens in your brain. Something shifts. You feel the warmth of being trusted. You feel the implicit compliment of being someone this person can be real with. And so you say, "Of course, yes, please." You just opened a door, and you had no idea what was standing on the other side of it. Because here is what that question is really doing. By asking permission to be honest, they have framed whatever they are about to say as a gift, as something brave and generous that you should receive with grace and openness. If you react badly to what follows, you are the problem. You cannot handle honesty. You asked for this. It reframes the delivery before the delivery happens. It neutralizes your reaction before you have even heard the content. And then, once your defenses are down, once you have verbally committed to receiving whatever comes next with open arms, they say what they actually came to say. And sometimes what they came to say is designed to shake you, to plant doubt, to reduce your confidence, to shift how you see yourself, your work, your relationships, your judgment. Disguised as a gift you asked for. Pay attention to the timing of when this question appears. It rarely shows up during neutral, comfortable moments. It tends to arrive when something is at stake, before a big decision you are about to make, after a success that shifted the balance of status between you, during a conflict where they need to land a punch but cannot do so directly without consequences. The phrase, "Can I be honest?" is the hand that reaches forward to lower your guard. What follows is the real purpose. The next time someone asks you this, you do not say yes automatically. You pause. You say something simple. You can always share what is on your mind. Notice what that does. It removes the special permission framing. It does not pre-approve the content. It treats honesty as a normal thing that does not require you to suspend your judgment before hearing it. You stay present, you stay guarded, and you evaluate what follows on its actual merits, not on the frame that was built around it before it arrived. The third one targets something you do not usually think of as a vulnerability. It targets your willingness to be useful, to be the person someone turns to when they are lost. It wraps a trap inside a compliment, and it does it so well that you feel good about handing over something that will later come back to cost you. Someone comes to you carrying a problem. They describe it in detail. They make you feel the weight of their situation. And then they look at you with something that looks like admiration, and they say, "What would you do if you were in my position?" And you answer. Because it feels good to be the person someone trusts enough to ask. It feels like respect. It feels like they value your judgment more than their own in this moment. So you think it through and you tell them. You give them your honest read on what the right move looks like. And you have just done something you did not intend to do. You have attached your name to a decision that belongs entirely to someone else. If they follow your advice and things go well, that outcome belongs to them. Their choice, their result, your role quietly fades from the story. But if they follow your advice and things go badly, something interesting happens. The conversation changes. They remember your exact words, They replay what you told them to do, and without quite saying it out loud, or sometimes by saying it very loudly, they hold you accountable for a decision you had no control over and never had to live with. You gave them a map, but you did not walk the terrain. They did, and when it was wrong, the map maker becomes the problem. There is something else here too. Sometimes the person asking has already decided. They know what they want to do. They just want someone else's name attached to it before they do it. A cosigner for a risk they already decided to take. If it works, they made the right call. If it fails, they were following advice. That is a very efficient piece of social protection, and you volunteered for it. Here is how you navigate this. When someone asks what you would do in their position, you do not answer the question directly. You reflect it. You say, "What is your instinct telling you?" You say, "It sounds like you already have a sense of what feels right. What is holding you back from that?" You can be present, you can be supportive, you can help them think more clearly, but your name stays off the decision. Their choice remains their choice. Your job is to help them hear their own answer, not to give them yours to borrow. People who are asking genuinely will find this just as helpful, often more helpful than a direct answer. And people who are looking for a scapegoat will realize quickly that you are not available for that role. Both outcomes protect you while genuinely serving the person in front of you. The fourth one is the one that makes you a weapon. Not against yourself, against someone else. Someone who trusted you. Someone who told you something true because they thought you were safe enough to tell. And one question from the wrong person can turn your loyalty into their exposure. You confront someone. It could be about a pattern of behavior you have noticed. It could be about a lie you discovered. It could be something you heard about them from a source that you are not prepared to name. You bring it to them. You stand in front of them with this information, and you wait to see what they do with it. And instead of addressing what you said, instead of even acknowledging it, they look at you with this particular expression, calm, almost curious, and they say, "Who told you that?" Feel the shift. Did you feel it? In one sentence, the entire conversation moved. You came in to discuss their behavior. Now you are defending your information. You came in to hold them accountable for something they did. Now you are being interrogated about how you found out. The offense has become the defense, and you are inside it before you notice the swap happened. If you answer that question, if you give them a name, you have done two things at once. You have betrayed the person who trusted you with information they gave you privately. And you have handed the person you were confronting a specific target, a person they can now discredit, isolate, or silence so that information stops flowing to you in the future. Think about what happens after. The person you confronted does not go home thinking about what you said. They go home thinking about who said it. They identify the weak point in their environment. They address it, not by changing their behavior, but by removing or discrediting the source. And the next time something happens that you should know about, there is no one left who feels safe telling you. Answering the question does not make you more honest. It makes you less trustworthy to the people who matter most. The people who bring you truth are rare. They stick their neck out to do it. And one careless answer from you can end that relationship without them ever knowing you were the reason. When someone asks who told you, you bring the focus back to where it started. You say, "That is not what we are discussing. What we are discussing is whether this is true." You say, "The source doesn't change the fact." You refuse to let the conversation move from their behavior to your methods. If it is true, then the truth is the subject. The path the truth took to reach you is not their business. Watch how they respond. Someone who genuinely wants to resolve something will engage with the actual issue. Someone who is using that question to redirect will become visibly frustrated that their strategy did not work. And in that frustration, you see something useful. You see how much they needed you to answer. Now we get to the one that makes the other four possible. The one that sits underneath all of them like a foundation. The one you have to understand to see why the first four ever worked on you at all. Think about the last time someone crossed a line with you and you did not push back the way you should have. Think about the last time you absorbed something that cost you and told yourself it was fine. Think about the last time you took on someone else's decision or protected someone who did not deserve protection or gave an answer you should have held on to. Ask yourself why. Not what they did, but why you went along. In almost every case, if you trace it back far enough, you will find the same thing. At some point before any of that happened, they asked you one question, and you answered yes. "You trust me, right?" Or it came as, "We are good, aren't we?" Or, "You know I would never do anything to hurt you." Or that half statement, half question that arrives in a warm voice when things feel close and safe. "I mean, you know you can trust me." And you said yes. Of course you did. Because saying no felt like an accusation. Saying no felt like you were the one creating a problem. Saying no felt like you were damaging something that was genuinely good by introducing suspicion where none should exist. So you said yes, and you meant it, and in that moment it felt like the right thing. But something happened in the architecture of the relationship after that. That yes became a reference point, an anchor. Every time their behavior drifted, every time something happened that made you uncomfortable, every time a quiet alarm went off inside you that you almost listened to, that anchor was there. You said you trusted them, so if something feels off now, the problem is probably you. Your perception is the issue. Your discomfort is the thing that needs to be managed. Your own words became the reason you kept ignoring your own signals. Here is the truth that almost no one is told about trust. Real trust does not need to be declared. It does not need to be announced. People who have genuinely earned your trust have never once needed to ask you for it, because their actions have already established it so clearly that the question would feel unnecessary to both of you. The track record is the trust. When someone needs to ask you if you trust them, when they need the words out loud, when they press a little if you do not give them quickly enough, they are not confirming something that already exists. They are installing something that does not. They need the declaration because the behavior has not been enough to earn it naturally. And once you say yes, that declaration becomes a kind of immunity. A shield they hold up every time their behavior falls short. "I thought you trusted me. You said you trusted me. Why are you questioning me if you said you trusted me?" Your words have been turned into handcuffs. This is why every other question on this list worked as well as it did. The retroactive approval worked because you trusted them, so questioning felt disloyal. The honesty framing worked because you trusted them, so their words carried more weight than they should have. The decision transfer worked because you trusted them, so you felt safe attaching your name to their choices. The source extraction worked because you trusted them, so openness felt appropriate. Every single one of those mechanisms runs on the fuel that this question filled. So when someone asks you, "You trust me, right?" you do not say yes and you do not say no. You say something that is completely true, something they cannot argue with, something that reveals exactly what trust means to you. You say, "I pay close attention to what people show me over time." You say, "Trust is something I build based on what I see." You say it warmly, you say it without accusation. And then you watch what happens. The person who genuinely has nothing to prove will hear that and simply nod. They will be comfortable with it because they know that their actions will speak clearly enough. They do not need the verbal shortcut because they are not looking for immunity. But the person who needed that yes, the one whose next 10 moves depended on having your declared trust in their pocket, will feel the answer land differently. They will push a little. They will ask why you are being like this. They will make you feel like your caution is the problem. And in that moment, in that reaction, they have just told you more about why they needed the answer than they ever intended to reveal. 5 questions, each one a different mechanism, each one targeting a different part of who you are. The first one takes your consent after the fact, using social pressure to turn you into someone who agreed when you never actually agreed. The second one frames manipulation as honesty and gets you to lower your guard before the punch lands. The third one transfers responsibility, turns your advice into their insurance, makes you carry the weight of a choice you had no control over. The fourth one hunts for the source, weaponizes your answer, and systematically removes the people in your life who are brave enough to tell you the truth.